The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Saturdays or Sundays, SOR Media, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of SOR Media is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced? Then come own the night with us.
Little brother has taken control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all
Station atop the mountains of British Columbia, live from SOR headquarters. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, and on Spaced Out Radio on iTunes. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio.
Brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We will expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized.
It's Tuesday, August 14th, Wednesday, August 15th, if you're on the East Coast or across the pond. And this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. Hope you had a great day and night. I am your host, Dave Scott, broadcasting to you live from the Great White North on top of the very smoky mountains of central British Columbia, right here at SOR headquarters. We're 150,000 strong nightly on the SOR radio network and Deep Talk Radio, and we say hello to each and every one of you. If you want to check out our archives, they are free on our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, shop at our store, read up on the encounter, and so much more. Don't forget, tickets are now on sale for the first annual Caribou Paracon presented by Spaced Out Radio and the Canadian Society of Questers, September 28th through 30th, right up here in 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Sure, it's a big jog to get up here, but it's going to be a great weekend. Go to questers.ca, click on the fall conference, and get your tickets right now. Tonight's show is brought to you by the YouTube channel Ensuho. Sebastian Martin bringing highly quality messages to the masses. Go to spacedoutradio.com, click on the Ensuho banner, and subscribe today. Whether you want to admit it or not, we all believe in something. Yes, even you atheists out there believe in nothing. So you're believing in something, really. It's all spiritual, and how we find out what we need is the real difference. Yet as mass consciousness seems to be growing, there does seem to be a generation glued to social media and reality TV. It has created a genre of low self-esteem, depression, relationship issues, and, for some, substance abuse. To try and make matters worse, the statistics are showing that this is a real trend going down. Faced with today's challenges, Kenya Aissa decided to write a book about it. Her book, concentrating on young women, is a look for spiritual renewal, strength, and comfort. Sacred Girl, Spiritual Life Skills for the Conscious Young Woman, speaks to women of all ages with talk, humor, true stories, stressing the importance of spiritual self-reliance. Then, in the bottom of hour number 3, Everett Themer will be back for the latest edition of The Encounter from the SOR Newsroom. And we may actually make a call to the Canadian Revenue Agency over in Pakistan that tried to harass me today. I still got to call them back. I'm debating whether we're going to do that or not. We may. What do you think? Should we call them, harass them back? You let me know in the chat rooms or on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio. But first, Kenya Aissa is with us on Spaced Out Radio tonight. Kenya, thank you so much for doing this show and teaching us all about the spiritual life skills tonight. How are you?
I'm great, and thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to talk to you.
You are way too kind. Way too kind. Honestly, you know, your energy is so bubbly and infectious, so I know we're going to have a great show tonight. Have you always been this way, or was this something that you kind of grew into as you spiritually evolved?
That is a really great question. I think I have always been this way. I have always had a very kind of chatty, I love to talk, I love to listen. I've always had kind of a bubbly personality, but I'm also really very straightforward, especially in the counseling world or in social work. I don't beat around the bush. I'm very, very direct. And so it's kind of a weird combination of both, I think.
Now, I always like to find out a little bit about people here because in the end, we need to introduce you to our audience. How did you get started on this spiritual quest? Did it happen young? Was it an experience you had, or was it something that you evolved into?
It started really young. I grew up in Catholic school, and I always felt kind of like a spiritual vibe as far as kind of away from the traditional Catholic teachings. Fortunately, I'm from Berkeley, California, so my school was very eclectic. Even our nuns were very kind of out there for Catholic nuns. And so they're the ones that I learned things like meditation from, and like a respect for the earth. And I heard a lot about yoga, which now I'm a yoga teacher, but growing up, I only heard about it, and I didn't really know anything about it or that it had a spiritual basis when I was a kid. And then as I grew up, I just became more interested in all kinds of different spiritual teachings and all kinds of things. And so then fortunately, because of my line of work, I got to delve deeper into that.
Did you come from a spiritual family outside of the Catholic Church? Like, were you believing in a lot of the other, whether it's, you know, health related or just, you know, spiritual genre in general? I don't even know how to put that.
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying. And no, I did not. My upbringing was very Catholic, but there was I still had a lot of curiosity about other spiritual traditions and other belief systems. And I really think that is because of living in an extremely diverse environment, growing up with people and other children from all different kinds of backgrounds. And even when I was 12 years old, I moved to Ghana in West Africa just because my mom and my godmother are both teachers and we were on a sabbatical. And so then I went to an international school with all different kinds of kids. And so one of my best friends was Indian, and so she was Sikh. And I had a lot of different people that I spent a lot of time around, and that I learned so much in that way. And I just kind of got this impression that everything was valid, like every way of not just worshiping, but every way of connecting, spiritually was a valid way, and nothing was invalid. And even though I come from a Catholic background, I was thinking to myself, everything's okay, not everything doesn't have to be what I believe or the way I was raised. Everything is valid because it all kind of leads us to the same path, down the same path to what we're looking for. And, for a lot of people, that's peace or enlightenment or something like that, or comfort,
So growing up with God as your spiritual guide and mentor in life, how difficult was it to open up yourself to other facets of spirituality?
It wasn't difficult at all. And I think it could have been just ignorance on my part, but I never got any feedback that was negative from any of the adults in my life. And so I think that was really helpful because I didn't have any fear of, repercussions or God striking me down with a lightning bolt or anything like that. I just didn't grow up with that kind of fear. I grew up in the 70s and everything was kind of hippy dippy. And so, I grew up on Telegraph Avenue with lots of Hare Krishnas and singing and all of that stuff. So I never got the impression from my parents or any of the adults around me, even in my school, that, everything didn't go. My understanding was everything was smooth and groovy,
But that was a different time in the 70s where even though religion was still quite prevalent and strict in some states, provinces, wherever you may live, there was still a real opening to expanding the mind. Some people used drugs like marijuana or acid to get there, much like the 60s, but other people just started on their own paths and their own journey, realizing that the world is a big place and shouldn't be so secluded.
Absolutely. And I did grow up traveling quite a bit. Again, I traveled to Africa and I traveled to Mexico and I traveled to France and Spain. So I did a lot of traveling. I totally have wanderlust. I'm always traveling. And so because of that, and I was able to get close to people and close to my friends' families and things like that. And even, when I was even younger than that, my dad had a Jewish girlfriend and she took me to temple with her. So I never I always found that there was a spiritual path in every tradition that could be integrated into my belief system, or that, there's a book out there called, I think it's called Many Paths, One Master, or something like that, that really kind of talks about how so many of the traditions, religions, spiritual paths they have more in common than they have different. And so I just grew up having a great respect for all types of belief systems, and anything out there that I felt like was my thing, then I went in that direction, because I think it's personal. That's one of the things I talk about in my book, is that your spiritual path is your spiritual path, and it is personal.
Right. And for a lot of people, though, they're having troubles in today's 24-hour society trying to find that balance or that time to, whether it's go to church or whether it's meditate or whether it's just to go walk barefoot on a lawn somewhere. I mean, there's just not enough time because the way communication is with social media, which we will get into later on in the show, they're really, you're really connected 24/7, even when you're sleeping.
Right. And that's absolutely true. And the truth of the matter is we always say we don't have enough time. I am notorious for this. Notorious. I said this morning when I woke up that I was going to go do yoga or go to the gym. I didn't do either of those things, And so some days I'm feeling like I'm doing things right, and some days I'm feeling like I am not, And so, but the truth is, of course, we have the time. It's a choice how we use our time, because I could get up and, like, my husband gets up and meditates. He'll meditate sometimes for 10 minutes, sometimes he'll meditate for 20 minutes. If it's a priority, you'll make the time. Some things only take 5 or 10 minutes. If I'm having a busy day and I do 10 minutes of yoga, I pat myself on the back like I performed heart surgery. Like, seriously. I'll be like, woohoo, you did 10 minutes of yoga. Because it doesn't matter really, how much you do, or it's, we're in a society where we so often judge ourselves. I'm not doing this enough, or I'm not working out enough, or I'm not, whatever. And I just think that that's not helpful, to our spirits. It's not helpful to our mental health. I'd rather just celebrate every little thing I do right instead of beating myself up for the many things that I don't do right.
Trust me on that. I am my own worst critic. Kenya, I'm going to get you to move you just a little bit away from your microphone because you're coming in just a little muffled there. But I do want to I do want to ask you: is this a loss of simplicity that men and women and even teenagers and children now have for society? We don't take the time to smell the roses, so to speak, because we're worried about what we're going to be missing on social media.
Yes. And I think that's an age thing as well, because I know that I have one child who's not on social media because he's too young, but I've got several godchildren, and one of them I tease frequently because it doesn't matter what she is doing, she has her phone in one of her hands. And it's hilarious, because it's like you can put your phone down for 5 minutes. Nothing is going to happen on Instagram or on Snapchat that can't be caught up with, And so I think it's a combination of over importance of what's going on out there that really has nothing to do with you. All of the people that you're quote-unquote friends with that you don't actually know, that you will never actually meet, or people that you see on there that have huge life events or have a baby or whatever, you don't know those people. And so it is so much more complicated. It's like our lives are so much more complicated because we're filling them with people that we don't actually even know. Isn't life complicated enough just with the people you do know? Much less the people that you don't know, that you will never see. And so the lack of simplicity is it's that, but it's also so much deeper than that. Because I think we have to look at what are we missing in our real lives, that we feel like we have to be connected to so many strangers. And for really young people, like, again, some of my teenage godchildren or the teenagers that I've worked with for the past 20 years, it's really interesting because they feel like those clicks or those likes or having more followers, it's their self-esteem is really wrapped up in it. And it's really crazy. I mean, I have truly had some disturbing conversations where, you know, and I told a teenager that I know, I said, if I did not have social media as a child, as a teenager, even as a young adult, there was no social media when I came of age. And I said, where do you think I got my self-esteem from? You know, or where, if I didn't have hundreds of thousands of followers, I had 0 followers. You know, I had real life friends. I had real life conversations. I did not text people because there was no texting. You actually had to speak to people on the phone and actually hear their voices, you know, and that's a kind of intimacy that I think is very lacking. And so now we're getting these young adults that are afraid of intimacy because they don't know how to be intimate, even in a friendship, you know, because, you know, saying LOL does not mean you're actually laughing out loud. You know, that you're not really laughing. You're just typing, you know. So it's you know, I talk a lot about spiritual deficits, and I think that is one. And I'm also not trying to denigrate social media. I love social media, but I'm also a grown woman, and I know how to navigate, you know, some of it and, you know, try to see the real from the unreal. And so I think there should be more talks about that for our young people and more reality checks, really.
I can totally see that because in the end, I mean, we can sit here and we can blame social media for everything. Okay, we can blame it for fake news. We can blame it for taking our time. I mean, I must admit, you know, I'm probably one of the worst at my kitchen table where I am, you know, because of the job I have, I am preparing for a show come dinner time. So I'm on my phone, you know, rather than paying attention to my family, finding out what their day is. My work day is just beginning. So I'm on my phone, you know, making sure I'm not missing anything, seeing what the news of the day is because I have to get ready. And I'm part of that guilt, and I can fully admit that. But on the flip side, is it because, let me ask this though, and I'll phrase it this way. Even though we can't blame social media for everything, because I think we're always looking for a scapegoat, how much of it is also society as well? Because we don't let children go out and play in the dusk anymore. We don't let children go out and get dirty and eat dirt and jump in mud puddles for the most part. Very few people are doing that anymore. We don't allow children to gather in the cul-de-sac for a game of kick the can or California kickball or football or whatever it may be. We just don't allow children to be children. So are these results then because of us and not the children actually being addicted? We're the ones as parents actually getting them addicted.
Yes, we are. So that's absolutely true. I think that, you know, I have an 8-year-old, and so I understand exactly what you're saying, and I think that a large part of it is because we are a very fear-based society. We see too much on the media. We see too much on television. There is too much graphic violence. There are too many reality shows that talk about violence and promote fear and things like that. And it's just so graphic. And so as adults, and myself as the mother, actually my child just turned 9, as the mother of a 9-year-old, there's definitely a fear that, and I'm also a social worker, so I've been a children's protective services worker for a really long time. So I'm suspicious of everybody, And so I think that it is really sad, because I agree, when I was growing up, I played in the creek. I got extremely dirty. I ran around the streets. I went to the corner store by myself or with my little friends at a very young age, and you just don't see that anymore. And it's largely based on fear. It's also based on, the children, that even the children are fearful. And also, we have grown as a society to use things like television and video games as babysitters. And that is a horrible, horrible idea. and it's one thing to have it as entertainment, but it's a completely different situation to have your entire life revolve around video games or the computer or the phone.
But that's safer. That's safer, though, because the child is inside in a secure quarters where they're not playing at the park where some pedophile can come up to them and try and lure them away, or somebody can try and, slip them drugs or anything. Because let's face it, I mean, for some reason, there seems to be an increase of perverts everywhere. Number one, but number two, everybody has become so relaxed on drugs, even marijuana, that it's just prevalent and being handed out like candy sometimes.
Sure, and it's not that there's an increase in perverts. Perverts have always been around. It's an increase in knowledge of the perverts, because we have news at our fingertips 24/7. And so, and not just local news. If I turn on my phone and I scroll to CNN, or I scroll to Fox, or I scroll to whatever news outlet that I can get immediately on my phone 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, I'm seeing things that are going on in Bangladesh, or a child gets kidnapped in the UK. I mean, it's like, when I was growing up, we didn't have, 50 channels or 100 channels or more, 300 channels. We had, 10 channels on the television. And so I think that it's an illusion that, oh my gosh, there's so many perverts and pedophiles and rapists and all that stuff out there. Yeah, they're out there, but they've always been out there. We just didn't know every time, a rapist crossed the street, or a pedophile got arrested. We didn't know it. So we were blissfully ignorant. And now we're not, because we see everything, we hear everything. And, some things are also skewed a lot. And so you have to be really careful, because sometimes we just get our news on Facebook or get our news on social media outlets. And, some of those are not true. Or every time, somebody posts that Morgan Freeman died, people are like, oh, no, rest in peace, Morgan Freeman. Morgan Freeman didn't die. It's just like, so we have to be really, really cautious about where we're getting our facts from. But also, do we want to raise an entire generation of fearful children who are scared of their own shadow? That is really scary, because we might feel this is deluding ourselves into thinking we're keeping them safe by keeping them inside. But we're not teaching them any life skills.
Mm-hmm. I see it in a couple ways, and I know this is going off on a tangent that I didn't really expect, but I'm kind of curious your thoughts here. In regards to parenting, I'm not one of these people who believes that video games create violence. I think what they do, is they, if anything, all of these first-person kill games, I think what they do is they they take the conclusion a little too far. But as for creating violence that, kids can go over there and say, okay, I'm going to shoot you because I killed 138 people last night playing Call of Duty, I don't think that's really correct in drawing the line. What is your thoughts on video games and the psychological perception that children are using that as violence or learning the violence from it?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you that it doesn't, that a violent video game is not going to create a violent child. Parenting begins with the parents and with the adults that are around the child, raising the child and instilling their values into the child. So a video game, a violent video game, is not going to change a totally healthy, normal child into a killing machine. But what repeated exposure to violence will do to anybody, including adults, is desensitize them so that what they're seeing is less shocking. So it's not the same thing as turning them into a killer, but it's, I don't believe that at all. And I think that before you allow your child to play anything, depending on the age of the child, you should know what they're playing. You should know what they're spending time on. And so I don't believe it's going to create this horrible, scary child. But even as an adult, I remember when I first started working with teenagers that had been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, I remember being very shocked by some of the stories and some of their life experiences and why they were in the residential treatment facility that they were in and what brought them there. There were lots of gang violence, sexual assault,
right,
things that had contributed to their drug use, and some of them were 12, 13, 14 years old. And I remember being very shocked at first, and then 2 years later, I'd hear a very dramatic story, and I would just be taking notes, ho-hum, sipping my coffee, because I had become desensitized to violence against children, child abuse and stuff like that, because I had heard so much of it all day, every day, and then I was working with the kids. And so if I, as an adult, can become desensitized, of course children can. So I think it's important to let them have fun and entertain themselves, but I think we know our children. We as adults know our children. We know what they are capable of. We know their level of maturity. If they're very sensitive children, we know that too. I know my child. And so based on the knowledge of my child, I'm going to have to decide, based on my own experiences with my kid, what I think my kid can handle. And what I think what kind of responsibility that my kid can have. If my kid isn't responsible enough, or if my kid is too sensitive for certain things or whatever, then, give him a book. A book won't kill you.
I get that, but, I used to coach hockey. And the one thing that I noticed as I was coming out of coach, now I haven't coached in over 20 years, but when I was coaching, we kind of saw the start of it where sports was becoming a daycare. All right. The parents would drop the kid off at practice and then pick them up after, or drop them off at a game and pick them up after. When I was growing up playing as a kid, there was always a parent at the rink. That just went with the common cause, whether it was the baseball diamond, because I played baseball and hockey growing up, whether it was one of the two, there was always a parent there until I got old enough where, I could ride my bike to baseball practice because it was just down the hill from me. But nonetheless, I look at sports, band, drama class, or whatever it may be, a lot of these activity type group settings, and I see so many kids now that are no longer doing that. And it's not because the kids don't want to growing up at, say, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. It's that their parents don't want to take them because it cuts into their day. So how has these group settings, whether it's, sports, band, drama, or any type of extracurricular activity, even scouts, how is that affecting today's child and even yesterday's child who are, say, now in their teenage years or early 20s?
I wish more kids were still involved in sports and music and things like that in the way they used to be and really should be, in my opinion. I think that, of course, there's been a lot of cutbacks in schools and the money, and one of my godchildren, of course, I have 8 godchildren, so I'm always talking about them. Her elementary school completely cut out PE, which to me was really bizarre because, of course, we complain all the time, or you hear all the statistics on the news about obese children, and so then you have a situation where the kids aren't even allowed to exercise because there's no PE, and so I think that as much as, sure, you see parents that don't want to take the time to take their kids to soccer practice or all these other things, sometimes you'll have them take them and they are engrossed in their phones because now we can do our jobs from our phones for the most part, oftentimes. But I think that I understand that to a certain extent because we're under a lot of pressure in this society to be productive all the time. If you take self-care, and I co-run a self-care Sunday group on Facebook with a friend of mine, and if everybody had a little bit more self-care, I think we would be a much healthier society. But I also feel like people feel so guilty, especially moms, taking some time for themselves because they're missing out on things they could be doing. They could be doing some work or paying some bills or balancing the checkbook or whatever, grocery shopping, doing laundry, all of the things that could be getting done that aren't getting done. Myself, I really need self-care. And so I will let laundry pile up so that I can take care of myself. Laundry is not going to choke out my house and my family. It's just going to be sitting there until I'm, in a position to deal with it. But I think that these days kids and parents are missing each other in a lot of ways too because of the lack of involvement and, like you were saying, dropping kids off and using sports as a babysitter. At least they're engaging with other people. At least the kids are engaging with other people. They're learning really valuable lessons of teamwork and good sportsmanship and how to have conversations and relationships with other people and with their peers. What my fear is for a lot of kids out there is that they're lacking relationships, and lacking the relationships means that they're lacking effective ways to deal with problems in relationships. Problem solving and communicating with each other doesn't really exist if you're stuck in the house playing, Call of Duty.
I get that, though. But I mean, even if you go to college and, you see a lot of these young social justice warriors where they feel that everything should be handed to them on a silver platter because they got good grades. The one thing that I have always enjoyed about sports, and I've seen especially schools in this area take it away, is competition. Competition is life. Right. That's the unfortunate part. Life is about winning and losing. And when we're all trying to make things social and make things equal, we've really, really diluted the talent pool from those who have drive to those who just expect everything to come their way.
Well, right. And competition is a part of life. And so to teach kids that everybody gets a trophy, or everybody's a winner, that is not true. And, I saw a whole thing on TV about that recently where the school sports trophy businesses are going through the roof because, when I was a kid and I played basketball terribly, I am the worst basketball player on earth, but I played for 8 years because I loved to play, but I'm awful at it. And when there was a winning team and a losing team, and now what you have is, everybody's a winner. Everybody gets a trophy. And so, everybody on both teams is getting a trophy. And if you have a team full of kids that didn't win and didn't perform, and maybe they underperformed because they didn't practice, or maybe they underperformed just because they had a bad day, it's okay to not win. That's how you learn. That's how you learn to handle conflict, but you have generations, like you were saying, kids in college who, when they were littler or in little league or playing baseball or whatever, they never understood how to handle defeat because they got a trophy even when they were awful.
I get that. I look at my 19-year-old daughter, okay? She went through school literally with straight A's. And she's a brilliant girl. She's a little bit quirky, a little bit awkward, and she did get bullied a little bit. But you know what? It's something that we're working with. But I mean, she is one of these kids who is upset that, like, heaven forbid if she's got to work for $12, $13 an hour because she's chosen as of right now to not go to college. And it's only because she doesn't, because, we've never had much money. We've been a middle-class family living paycheck to paycheck, and she just doesn't feel like wasting money on college on taking courses that she doesn't want to take just yet. But the one thing that I've noticed is as she has lost out on opportunity, her own personal self-esteem has gone down. And with that she also suffers from depression and anxiety, which she has unfortunately inherited from her father. Damn me. And I look at it and I think, okay, here I am, and I realize everybody's different in the way they can handle it. But here I am. I don't take any medication for it. I try and defeat it every day, but my daughter, maybe it's more severe. I see her as saying, okay, she has been to counselors, she has been to a psychologist, and all it is about pumping these kids full of drugs rather than finding their own spiritual self and finding themselves the hard way, as everybody has had to do up until the last 20, 25 years.
Absolutely. Please give your daughter my book. She is my girl. She is my person. I 100% agree. Don't even get me started on the medication. Like, really, do not even get me started. I am very, very pro psychotropic med, anxiety med, whatever. I'm pro those medications if there is a serious chemical imbalance. I think that, and what I've seen, though, as a social worker is there are medications given out to kids. I think most of my kids in my last caseload were on medication, and some of them very, very strong, and some of them even antipsychotics, and it's not prudent to give young people heavy medications without very serious, extensive blood work, because and even brain scans and things like that, because what you're doing is you're affecting their brain chemistry, and then down the line, I've seen kids grow to adulthood who then have side effects from their medications that they took when they were young, and having tics and things like that. And so I am totally pro-medication if all of that work has been done and the person is not able to function in the world properly without the medication, because anxiety is a terrible thing. Depression is a terrible thing, and can lead to bigger problems down the road. And so if there are holistic ways to handle it, if there are ways to connect with yourself spiritually so that you can find out, other ways to handle it, I think that trying to handle your problems holistically first is not something that we do enough in this country, because we're very much in the pocket of the pharmaceutical industry. And the pharmaceutical industry will bleed us dry every opportunity they get. So, because meds are money, meds are expensive. And so I think that that's one of the reasons why I'm really passionate about the book and spirituality, because having skills to take care of yourself may not always be enough. You might need medication, but, you also need to be able to handle yourself and know yourself. And you can't know yourself if you don't take the time to figure out what makes your spirit breathe, as I put in my introduction, who you actually are, what makes you excited about life, what your passions are, because we're on the hamster wheel. We are often just doing too much.
Where does discipline come into that? Because for the last 20, 25 years, it's really become a faux pas to even mention that you may spank your children or not. I think everybody will come out in public, oh, I would never do that. I would never lay a hand on my child. But everybody still tends their kids' butts every now and again, and I don't think that, and no offense, I don't care what anybody says, I don't see that as child abuse at all. All right. I mean, there's a big difference between, throwing your kid against a wall or punching them, rather than giving them a soft little tap on the behind or the hand, telling them that's not a good thing to do. Go into the knife drawer and pick up a knife or scissors, Right. But in today's society, we seem to be getting ludicrous with all of these rules. Recently, a few months ago, there was an Australian child therapist who said we should be asking babies, infants, if we can change their diaper. Otherwise, it could be construed as sexual abuse.
Wow.
And that was all over the media for a while. My son is 5. Okay. My son is 5. And, are you telling me that when he was 3 months old, that if I changed his diaper because he was laying in feces, as children do, that I'm supposed to ask him permission to change his diaper? Come on.
Right.
But that's the ridiculousness. And these people are having their voices heard, and it's winning over the politicians who cater to absolutely everything that is in a minority thought.
Sure, because really all you have to do to call yourself an expert is to call yourself an expert. I'm an expert in this field. I have gone to the print shop and made myself a business card, and now I'm an expert. And so, yes, that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. So thank you for giving me a good laugh tonight, because that is ridiculous. But, freedom of speech. if you want to spend your child's first several months or year or 2 years asking them if they want their diaper changed, go ahead. You're crazy if you do that, but I think there's also a oversensitivity in our society. Nobody wants to offend anyone, and nobody wants to, there's the safe touches and the soft touches and the unsafe touches. That, of course, there are situations where kids are being molested. Kids also need to be aware that their body is their body, and that if people are there in their lives making them feel uncomfortable or touching them in a way that makes them feel unsafe, that is a no-no, and they have got to feel free and comfortable speaking out against that. On the other hand, not everyone that touches you is molesting you. And even I have several friends that are teachers and preschool teachers and kindergarten teachers, and one of my friends was telling me how frustrating it is for her as a pre-K teacher that she can't hug the children. That she's been doing this for 25 years or something, and now there are school rules that you can't hug the children. You've got little children that could fall or cry or just need to be comforted, but you're not allowed to put your hands on the child because it may be construed as molesting. That's as stupid as the diaper problem, and it's frustrating to her. And I just, when I taught preschool from when I was, I think, 19 to 18 to 20 or something, 17 to 20. And I was very huggy and lovey and affectionate and combed all the kids' hair and, all of these things. But now it's, you've got people in the field of taking care of children who aren't allowed to give a child the basic child's basic emotional needs, which children need to be held and touched, especially if they need to be comforted. And I think it's really, really sad that you've got loving teachers out there and loving caregivers out there who don't feel like they can do that.
We only got about 4 minutes before we have to go to our first break. I told you this first hour would fly on by, and we're going to get more into the spirituality side of everything in hour number 2. When it comes to children, then, what can a parent do? Because we are always looking over our shoulder to see what the reaction of everybody else is, because everybody is quick to jump to social media and say, this person beats their child, or this person is negative, or was shaking their child in the middle of the toy aisle of Walmart, or something along those lines. Everybody wants to be the social media hero in outing somebody. Right. And you just can't parent. You can't parent.
And everybody has videos on their phone. So, you can, so if you feel like yelling at your kid and somebody decides to pull out their phone and, videotape you yelling at your kid, you just have, I think as parents, we just have to understand that this is the world that we live in. If you want to yell at your kid because your kid has acted in some sort of crazy or unsafe manner, yell at your kid in your car, or yell at your kid at home, or pull your kid aside, or whatever. You cannot not parent because you're afraid that somebody might see you or judge you. I'm going to parent the way that I want to parent. If somebody wants to pull out their phone, they're welcome to it. But we can't allow ourselves to raise our children based on fear and judgment, because then we're not raising our children. We're just catering to societal fears.
How much of that goes on television companies or media companies like Disney, where if you watch almost every Disney show these days, The kids are the smart ones, and the minute you get into adulthood, all of a sudden you are dumb as a bag of nails. I mean, I don't know if you've noticed that with your kids, but I mean, if you go on the Disney Channel and watch some of these children's sitcoms,
Right.
they are ridiculous in how they perceive children to be the know-it-alls and the adults to be absolutely stupid that, shouldn't walk and chew gum at the same time.
Well, it's been like that ever since, even when I was a child. I remember, movies like, Disney movies like, I don't even know if this is a Disney movie, but I think it is, Freaky Friday, or that one where the twins traded places and their parents couldn't tell the difference. Things like that, those things were happening in the 60s and the 70s, where, the kids are the heroes, the kids are the smart ones, and that's entertainment for children, I guess, where the kids feel like they're the ones in charge. I think that, it's just silly entertainment for kids. I think that if you're raising your kid with half a brain, they know that who actually is running the show in the household, and I think that it's really, really important for parents to let their kids know who's actually in charge. I make sure my kid knows that, this is my house, this is me and his father's house, and he is a person that lives here, and this is his house as well, but he doesn't pay the bills. He is not in charge. He's just sitting here being cute.
Exactly. Exactly. We'll get more into the spirituality and everything coming up in hour number 2. Our guest tonight, Kenya Aissa. She has an incredible, incredible book out, and I highly suggest you get it, especially if you are a woman or of the female persuasion. Sacred Girls, Spiritual Life Skills for Conscious Young Women. We're going to talk about that coming up in hour number 2 on Spaced Out Radio.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
The freedom to post what you want, when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social Media Freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today.
Coming September 28th to the 30th, it's our first annual Caribou Paracon, put on by Spaced Out Radio and the Canadian Society of Questers. 3 days of paranormal, supernatural, and spiritual knowledge in the beautiful 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Tickets are $150 Canadian for the event, being held at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Come watch our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Lorian Fenton, David Weatherly, Ross Allison, and more. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4COP. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
Hi there, this is Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I'm going to take you for a ride every Sunday night on Spaced Out Sundays. I'm going to set up your week with some strange tales from across North America, from psychic readings, Sasquatch, UFOs, to the most haunted locations. Come join me at spacedoutradio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, and let's get weird together. I'd love for you to join me. Spaced Out Sundays at spacedoutradio.com.
There's news, and there's the encounter. This is Spaced Out Radio News Director Everett Thiemer inviting you to check out The Encounter, our half-hour news segment every Monday through Friday night is different compared to what you're used to. Our goal is to bring you the weird, strange, and interesting stories the mainstream tends to leave out, and stories that will make you scratch your head in disbelief. The Encounter can also be found at spacedoutradio.com and on our Facebook page, SOR The Encounter. Come give us a read.
We're bringing scientific thought to the paranormal. Hi there, this is Spaced Out Radio scientist Chris Cogswell. Join me, Chris Zuger, and Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month, where we break down the who from the woo when it comes to everything paranormal. We'll investigate and try to bring sensible answers to those straight and sometimes outlandish questions people have. Hey, not everything has an answer, but we'll do our best. Listen in to Reality Paranormal only on Spaced Out Radio.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for some great nightlife? The Moose Vancouver is the place to be. Catch a game on one of the big screens or just come rock out to your favorite 80s and 90s hair bands. Great food starting at $6.95. The Moose Vancouver is open until 2 a.m. nightly. It's easy to find near the corner of Nelson and Granville. The Moose Vancouver is the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News, as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for being with us. Tomorrow night on the show, we head south for Ghosts of the Great White North. As we head over to Gettysburg, we get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time at spacedoutradio.com. We welcome back everyone listening in on the SOR Radio Network and Deep Talk Radio. Thank you so much for checking out our archives. They are on YouTube. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Polymorphonuclear. Polymorphonuclear is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets the password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. You can rock out to Bumblefoot, shop at our store, read up on the encounter online, and so much more. And if you go to questers.ca right now, questers.ca, click on the Fall Conference. You can get tickets right now for the first annual Caribou Paracon presented by Spaced Out Radio, September 28th through 30th, right here in central British Columbia. I would love to see you here. We got speakers like Grant Cameron, Lorian Fenton, David Weatherly, Ross Allison, Eric Cooper, Paisley Town, Mike Morin, many that you know from this show. So get your tickets right now. Tonight we are talking with author Kenya Aissa. Her book, Sacred Girls, Spiritual Life Skills for Conscious Young Women, is out right now. You can find it at any online store. I highly suggest you check it on out, especially if you have, young women in your life, daughters, granddaughters, whatever it may be. Kenya, welcome back.
Thank you very much.
I am so glad you're here and talking about this. The spirituality, if we focus on women for this hour, all right, because I'm a dad of two beautiful girls, and it has, I've seen those ups and downs, and it's tough. Like, it is so much different than raising my boy. My boy is just, I think as a father, you kind of hold a different stature between the daughters and the sons, that's for sure. But what do we got to do to empower young women to not only succeed in society, but to succeed spiritually with their own consciousness as well?
Well, you're right. It's a totally different world raising boys than it is raising girls. And most of the work I've done in my life has been focused on girls and girls' issues and women's empowerment, etc. And when I was pregnant 9 years ago, because my child just turned 9, I remember the night before I found out the sex of my child, I literally prayed for a boy all night long because I thought to myself, God, boys are just so much easier, and I said, I'm probably never going to have another child. I had my child at 42, and so the likelihood of me having another child was very, very slim. And so because at that point I had been in this line of work for a long time, so I know girls very well, and I'm an expert in my field, and I knew what I'd be getting into probably if I had a girl. And so I think that the whole crux of the work that I do with girls and young women is helping them to find their own power and to understand that they have that power, because I can't give them anything. When I started working with my girls that inspired this book, what I realized was that as a counselor, and it's the same as a parent, you only have a certain amount of time to do what you need to do for this child, for this person. You are not going to be living with them for the rest of their lives. You're not going to, with my girls, I wasn't going to be working with them every day for the rest of their lives. They were in a treatment center, and they would be out in 6 months or a year or 18 months. And so what I had to do when I was working with them and running a spirituality group with them was I had to find things that would survive me, that would survive my contact with them. And I was at a loss, just like a lot of parents are. What do I do? How do I help this this kid, how do I help them empower themselves? How do I help them understand their own power as far as their lives go? And so it was a lot of research and a lot of work and a lot of, working with them on understanding their bodies and respecting their bodies and doing a lot of movement with their bodies and yoga and dance and singing and all kinds of things. And, learning about respecting themselves and teaching them in a very straightforward way. Like I told you earlier, I'm not one really to beat around the bush. I'm not pussyfooting around, really important topics. I'm very, very direct because I feel like time is of the essence when I work with somebody. I don't know how much time I'm going to have with a lot of people, and so I have to get in there and teach them what I need to teach them, and then teach them how to maintain that long after I'm gone. And so that is kind of what the whole my book with the spiritual life skills is all about, because it's not just life skills like learning how to have a bank account or whatever. It's spiritual life skills, which is like learning how to manage your own spiritual toolbox, so to speak, and the tools that you need to be successful, to be emotionally, and I don't mean financially, because that's not my area of expertise whatsoever, but how to take care of yourself internally, how to respect your own spiritual path, and how to move forward in a way where you are comfortable and where you are honoring yourself and honoring your feminine, power. And so it's complex, but it's also maybe simpler than it seems, but it's complex.
Are women more prone to losing their spirituality than compared to men? Or is it still the same old where most men are more five senses people while women are looking to get in touch with more of their inner zen, if we could put it that way?
I think that I think it really, really depends on the person and very largely on their upbringing. So I really don't think that there is kind of a gender difference really there. I think that the way women handle their emotions is very different than the way men handle their emotions. There's been a few studies about that, especially when it comes to young people, young kids, and also boys and girls with PTSD. The way they move forward in their lives are very different. The way they handle things and process things, process trauma is very, very different. And so I think when it comes to a spiritual life, I think that women, they have a tendency to move forward in spirituality and many things based on kind of relationships and friendships and what their peers might be doing, and that's okay to a certain extent, because I feel like having groups is a good thing, but ultimately your spirituality is so incredibly personal, and the way you navigate your spirituality is so important that it cannot be left to happenstance. And I think that it is one of those things that has to be, you have to really put one foot in front of the other in order to follow your spiritual path and to really honor what you believe in, not based on maybe how you were raised. That's always going to be a factor, either good or bad. For some people, it's a factor, a negative factor. For other people, it's a positive factor. but ultimately it's your decision, it's your life. You have to look within yourself and say, what is it that moves me? What is it that works for me? What is it that makes me feel strong, makes me feel powerful, makes me feel empowered? And then go in that direction, regardless of if it's being supported by other people or not. And that's where, kind of the bravery and the strength comes in, because it's very challenging for women to not look to being approved of. Women, young women especially, are constantly seeking approval from other people, whether it be our parents or our friends. We're very susceptible as young women to have to be in the in crowd, or we feel horrible or we feel worthless if our friends don't like us, or people we perceive to be our friends don't like us. And so it's really important to teach young women at an early age that it's okay to honor what you feel and what you believe, and that's a challenging lesson to teach them.
This may be a difficult question, but has today's feminism hindered or helped the growth of women both professionally and spiritually?
I personally have a very strong opinion on that, and so I believe that it has absolutely helped, because I don't believe it's the same as the feminism of the 60s, or the 70s. I feel like it's extremely different, and there were different battles back in the early days, back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. Very different battles, workplace issues, the rate of pay. We still have those challenges today. Women are still overall getting paid less. Now, granted, we are making a lot of money and things like that. We're getting educated, but still, we're still not getting paid, exactly as much as men in a lot of fields. And so nowadays, there are bigger fish to fry, with the Me Too movement. Even when I was in my 20s, everybody I knew was getting sexually harassed and things like that in the workplace. And I was a waitress when I was really young, and, I was getting sexually harassed by another waiter, etc. And it's different today because it is so not tolerated. When I was young, it was really, really annoying and could be really painful and could be really distressing. But you don't think, back in my day, we didn't think, oh, I can do something to make sure this guy gets fired. That never even crossed my mind. And these young women today are not having it. They are not having it. If you mess with them, they will have your job. So I think that is, there are certain factors of feminism today that I feel like is very, very positive, because ultimately women just want to be treated with respect and be paid the same and treated as well, and have our ideas respected as well as men. It's not rocket science, it's just equality.
I understand that, and I can totally appreciate that. And like I said, as a father of two daughters, there's nothing more that I want is for the world to be open up to my daughters. All right?
Right.
That they can do anything. I got one daughter who wants to be a marine biologist and join the Canadian Coast Guard. I got another daughter who's still trying to figure out what she wants to do, but she's smart enough where she can do anything that she wants. And I don't look at it whether it's a male or female job. And I realize there is still a very loud minority out there who believe that is possible. But at some point, how do you join both sides when it's no longer the best person for the job, but it is about What is your sexual orientation? What is your color? What is your background? And in the end, it's not so much about choosing at times the best person as it is the best fit to make everybody seem equal, when in reality it's not, because that can hurt productivity. It doesn't matter what business or industry you're in.
Right. I agree with that. I also agree that the scales have been tipped so far towards men, and there's, not just a gender issue, but there's, racial issues and things like the way people look, or, if they're obese or whatever, or if they're handicapped. So there's always something that we have to look at where to figure out, it's great if everybody is just judged on their ability to do the job so that productivity can be as high as it can in the workplace. However, you also have to look at, there are so many other factors other than just productivity. And yes, the best person for the job should be the one hired. I think part of the issue is that you have people out there who think that a woman is never going to be the best person for the job because they're not physically strong enough, or whatever the judgment may be, or that a person in a wheelchair is never going to be the right person for the job, or a person of color is never going to be the right person for the job because of A, B, and C. And so, that's really where we have to look at our hiring processes, because we all have our personal biases. Nobody is immune from bias. And so there has to be more, there checks and balances as far as hiring goes, because do I want to hire someone for the job just because this is a woman, or do I want to hire someone, based on education or based on experience or whatever? And so it's all about checks and balances. And it's very often, at least in this country, I can't speak for anyplace else, but skewed in my country, in the United States, skewed towards men. And I think in the Western world overall, skewed towards men, in particular white males, coming from, going back many generations. And so it is a struggle. The struggle is worth it, but it's still a struggle, and it's going to be a struggle, in my opinion, moving forward for quite a while, because it's people are used to it being a certain way, and it's very challenging for people to change, and for traditions to change.
I understand that, but giving false hope to people when you're not choosing the right candidate can't be good either. That almost is destined for failure. And I say that, okay, like my team at Spaced Out Radio here, we are very diverse. All right, we have people of color, we have people of different gender. The brains behind this operation, Amy Martin, is one of the most brilliant people I have ever met on this planet. And by God, I used to think of myself as a smart guy, but man, does she make me feel stupid. Honestly, and I'm almost embarrassed to make eye contact. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, oh, I'm not making eye contact there. She's way too brilliant for me. But, but that's the reality of it. That's the reality of it. And I'm just worried and concerned that as the politically correct starts to get way more say over the last couple of years, that we are almost creating false hope for people who are unqualified, rather than taking the best of the best. And instead of saying having a neutral team of 50-50, take the two best women or the two best men and put them on that team?
I think that there's going to be a period, probably a long period, where things the scale will tip very far in either direction. So as these changes occur, and they've been occurring slowly, 2 steps forward, 1 step back for generations, but it's great to hire more women, and some hiring parties may say, well, we must hire more women, so let's just hire a couple of decent women and hope for the best. And that could fall apart because the women may not be qualified for the job. You can't hire somebody just because they're a woman. And then then you have the other people who are like, I'm not going to bow down to political correctness. I'm hiring the best man for the job. So I think that for a while it's going to be really far in one direction or the other in a lot of industries. As time goes on, my hope, and I have a lot of optimism for it evening out so that it's not so sexist or it's not so gender biased, and everybody will step up to the plate as far as their education and as far as their experience and as far as their ability and their willingness to work hard, to put in the work, to put in the hours, to get the job that they feel they deserve. You have to be qualified.
But it seems like qualification doesn't seem to happen. So when you are trying to empower women, and especially young women who are being degraded daily by magazines, by social media, and let's face it, the witchiest people of all on social media are teenage girls. I've seen it firsthand. All right. I mean, as a guy, and you can tell your buddy he's fat or he's ugly or he's stupid, and you may get upset, but within the hour you're back to playing video games or talking about girls or whatever it is. Yet with teenage girls, it is completely opposite. That is stuff that can go on for years, man. Years.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And with young men, it can be really devastating for someone to call you fat or stupid, and you just hide it more effectively because young men are trained early on to not show that kind of pain and not show that kind of emotion. It doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, but they're trained to brush it under the rug. Whereas young women are, even if it's subconsciously, it's not necessarily that their parents are trying to teach them to be super emotional or very, very sensitive. Some women are just naturally like that. Others are not. But yes, girls can be very, very harsh to each other, and in turn also be very, very harsh, judgmental, critical of themselves. And they can be their own worst enemy. And then what you have on social media is a lot of images that you may think are real, or why I wish I was living that person's life, or I wish I looked like her, or I wish my body looked like that. And, the reality, of course, is that a lot of those images are highly altered, and nobody looks like that, and know that the girl in the picture could have, a much more normal-looking, natural-looking, totally lovely but more normal body than what it's portraying on, say, for example, Instagram. And so the self-judgment is what needs to be stopped. And the only person that can do that is the girl herself, by focusing on her own gifts and her own passions and her own goals, not spending so much time obsessing over what other people do or what other people think, and also not allowing other people in their lives, their friends or their peers, to have so much power over them. Because if you say something negative about me and it basically destroys my world for, however long, then I have clearly turned over my power to you in a way that is not healthy. And you have no business holding that much power over my emotions. And so the job is to teach the girl that is ridiculous. That, we get this later. We women get this in our older years, our 20s or 30s, 40s, whenever. Some women don't get it until, late, but eventually we have a tendency to get it. But my thought when I decided to write this book was that I feel like girls should be getting that message a lot sooner. That, it's not really healthy to turn over my power like this to my peers or to people that I don't know, and that I should be regaining, retaking, reclaiming the power over my own life so that I can honor my own existence. I think that's a message that needs to come out and be taught so much earlier.
I got a question and a comment from our audience, if you don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
We'll go with the comment from Vivian here, from the SOR Space Travelers on Facebook. And she is saying, the old feminists were great, but the newest ones are taking women's rights back 70 years and are cutting men down way too much, causing men not to trust women, which then breaks down the line of communication. What are your thoughts on that?
I can't 100% disagree with Vivian. I really can't, because I hear exactly where she's coming from. And as, even the Me Too movement, as it started, I felt really conflicted, because I felt like, maybe some of these women are just going too far. Maybe, they should have a thicker skin and not be so offended if somebody, says something to them or looks at them, in a way that makes them uncomfortable, whatever. And so as someone who grew up in the 70s and the 80s, I was really conflicted by it. So I really hear what she's saying. I think, again, my opinion is that, I feel like that the issue is equality. It really is. And also, one thing that's a huge factor here is that there can be a physical threat that a lot of women feel that is not a factor for men when it comes to women. Most men are not afraid that a woman can physically overtake them. But women, for the most part, even if you're an extremely strong woman and you work out every day and you're lifting weights, which I certainly am not doing, but the likelihood of me being able to not be maybe physically intimidated by somebody that is, for example, sexually harassing me in the workplace, I'm probably going to be physically intimidated by that person. And so there's that aspect as well. And so I agree with what she's saying in a lot of ways. I feel like there needs to be a middle ground, but there also needs to be a great deal of change and respect moving forward for both parties, really. But women are the ones, I think, that have really suffered the most in this way. And feminism has a lot to do with much more than the workplace. There are a lot of other aspects out there.
I get that and I understand that, but let's go back to when we were in our early 20s, okay? We're doing the club scene. Up here in Canada, it was 19. I know down in the States, it's 21. You're doing the club scene. You have a couple of drinks. Next thing you know, I mean, there's plenty of people out there who have had a one-night stand, men and women, all right? And now, 20-some years later, we're seeing a lot of those people, mostly women, and I'm not shooting names down here, I'm just asking a provocative question, that are coming back to express some sort of sexual indignity from that one-night stand that happened 25 years ago before the person had any power, whether it's a city mayor, a firefighter, a police officer, a politician, an actor, a sports athlete, whoever it may be. At what point do we have to say, look, you had some fun one night, you now regret it, or are you now just trying to cash in? And this is the argument that I think a lot of people are having on whether or not to support movements like Me Too or to support the women's rights era, which seems to be going after everybody, and time is no limit.
I agree. I think that definitely I've seen a lot of this go on, and it's really disheartening because what it's doing is it's minimizing the real victims that are out there. And so if I'm out there partying when I'm 21, 22, and I have a one-night stand with a guy, or if I get together with a guy and then he doesn't call me and I'm really upset by that, 20 years later, 30 years later, should I come forward and say that guy was a sexual deviant, or say that he, was inappropriate with me in some way? That's not fair. That's something that for sure should not be happening. And I've seen a lot of situations where it bothers me, where I've seen what I perceive to be that to be the case. Now, there are certainly situations where that's not the case. If you're someone who, I'm just, I'm not going to say any names, but for example, someone who may have been very famous and may have been allegedly drugging his sexual partners so that they may not have known what they were doing.
That's
right?
different. That's completely different.
That's completely different because you are 100%, that is 100% rape.
Absolutely.
And there are no bones about that.
I guess the issue that I'm having here, and that I'm fearful of as a company owner, is we have a lot of people out there listening to a show like this, and there's other shows that are bigger, better, and way more popular, right? But on the flip side, we see these companies now who are firing employees on a statement. And now this person is guilt by media or guilt by accusation. It's guilty until proven innocent, which is against everything any proper court of law is having here. And I think to the case, there was a case in the United States, the young man's name is, I forget right now, but he was a young football player who was one of the most highly recruited running backs in the nation. And he was accused and sentenced to 10 years in prison for raping a classmate. And she came back and stated that it never happened and apologized. And now this gentleman, at 26 years old, he spent 8 years in prison on a wrongful conviction, But it seems like the
Right.
the accusation is already providing a lot of guilt. And we see a lot of companies doing this, firing before they even want to hear both sides of the story because they don't want to be involved. So it's let's react before we hear both sides of the story. And if they don't react,
Right.
they tend to be absolutely harassed.
Absolutely. And that, in situations like that, that young woman should go to jail. That's just my opinion. You have taken away years of someone's life. You've taken away years of someone's freedom. You deserve to go to jail for that. That's my opinion. And I also feel like a lot of companies are jumping the gun, like you're saying, that and it's based on fear of being sued or being seen as a company that doesn't take sexual harassment or rape or whatever seriously. And so that doesn't mean that you don't thoroughly investigate. You can't just believe everything you hear, because every single woman that makes these types of claims is not a woman with integrity. They might be, and so it has to be investigated properly. But, women are just people just like everybody else. Some women are not going to be honest. I believe that most women that accuse men of things as serious as rape, I believe that they are telling the truth. But again, innocent until proven guilty. I do not believe that every single person should be taken, their word should be taken at face value, because this woman might have, something against this guy, or, it has to be investigated in a proper way.
This leads to Marty's question at hashtag Spaced Out Radio on Twitter. He's saying, how will it affect relationships between men and women if males become afraid to even approach a female in the workplace for fear of being accused of sexual harassment? No one knows what the rules are anymore. Things can go too far. What is your thoughts, Kenya?
I think that I agree with him, and it's unfortunate because how many of us, myself included, have met their spouse in the workplace? I'm glad that my husband wasn't afraid to talk to me. I think that one thing we have to do, and men particularly have to do, please hear me out there, men, listen to the cues of, presuming that this is a woman you're interested in, look at their cues. If they are giving you the sexy face or giving you some sort of hint or flirting a little bit, I don't think you should be afraid to flirt. I think that flirting is natural. If somebody is looking uncomfortable or isn't returning your flirtation, then back off and leave them alone. Because women sometimes we don't want to be bothered. We also don't want to feel uncomfortable. But, and you might want to look at, just listen to the cues. Most of the time, if a woman is interested in a man, he's going to know it unless he is really, really, really distracted, because most of the time if a woman is interested in a guy in the workplace, she'll show some sort of sign. And I don't think that we should have a situation now where we're so fearful of making connections. Because like I was saying earlier in the first hour, it's challenging these days to connect in the real world because everybody's on their phone and there's more online dating than regular dating. You don't meet people. We're so busy. We're not even outside long enough to meet people, and we're not hanging out in bars or clubs or anything the way that we used to. And so yeah, a lot of times we're going to meet people in the workplace, and it should not be considered a crime to look at somebody in the workplace. You're not raping them with your eyes. Be appropriate, and if you feel like you're getting some sort of vibe, then maybe try to get in touch with them outside, or maybe if you're going someplace as a group or something, some way, maybe take it out of the workplace, because you don't want to be accused of something in the workplace that you're not intending on doing. But you also have to really listen and really use your brain with women. Don't be creepy. That's really to me the main rule. Don't creep a woman out. We don't like that.
Hey, and I have no problems. I've told my daughters, please feel free to smack somebody if they don't treat you with the respect. I'm sorry, it's the hockey rules way. You know
right.
what I'm saying?
But I don't ever say put your hands on anybody, because these days it is not the same as when I was young or when my mom was young. You smack a guy, that is assault, and you are going to jail.
Yeah, up here, I think up here in Canada, there's still a little bit of modicum of respect that way, that if you get hit by a woman, you just kind of be a man and take it. I'm not saying... Yeah.
Go Canada, man.
Honestly, I've told my daughters point blank, I said, if somebody's treating you with disrespect or you feel it, I said, just go for it. Go for it.
Yeah, here
why
we
not?
are such a litigious society here in the States that if somebody offends you and you're a female and you smack them, you could go to jail.
Oh, yes.
Just like that. Just like that.
This goes to Harolyn's question here. She's saying, so what if another woman makes a sexual comment towards another woman? Would she take it as a joke or an offense?
I think that depends on a couple of things. I think it depends on, is it likely that first woman is flirting with you? Is that first woman openly interested in other women? Or is that first woman just, someone who identifies as heterosexual or whatever, and they just say, that dress is really cute on you? You know what I mean? I think that ultimately it's about that the first person's intent is, and how you take it. Are you uncomfortable? If you feel really uncomfortable and you feel that the first woman is intending to flirt with you or not, you know what I mean? I think that's really what it's about. If some woman flirts with me and I'm not interested in that or whatever, then I'm kind of old school. I'm probably not going to really freak out.
True.
I think that also it's about position as well. Is that first woman in a position of power? If I don't respond the way she wants me to, could my job be at risk? That's a huge thing.
When it comes to spirituality, part of what I have learned through it is you have to feel beautiful yourself in order to accept compliments and other high regarded comments towards your inner or outer beauty or good work or hard ethics or whatever it may be. Have we forgotten to take a compliment?
Wow, that's a good one. I don't know if compliments are seen the same way these days as they were when I was coming up, because like some of your callers are insinuating, there really is a political correctness these days that can sometimes go overboard. So if somebody is afraid to compliment you because you might get offended, or if you're someone who is uncomfortable being complimented, I think that that's something really important to look at. Because, and as far as what you're saying about feeling beautiful and internal beauty and outside beauty, that is dependent on what your idea of beauty is, or what your definition of
Right.
beauty is. Because not everyone is going to look on the outside like a supermodel. And as a matter of fact, most of us do not. And so if you don't feel like a beautiful person, or you're living a beautiful life, that's something that you have to, or you can choose to do. Because, you know, if you're worried about your outside beauty, you have to think about why. Are you worried because you don't feel like somebody's going to be physically attracted to you? Or do you feel like the way that you look impedes your ability to do what you want to do with your life? If I wanted to be a fashion model on the New York runways, I'd probably be out of luck, because, I'm not tall and skinny and all these other things. But also, things are changing so much in the world that, I'm 51 years old now, and I am a model, which is really strange because I'm also not that tall and I'm kind of older and all of these weird things. But you have to follow your dreams regardless of what, society may say about what you look like on the outside or whatever. You have to feel good on the inside. You have to feel beautiful on the inside, and that has way more to do with you internally than it does with what you're like on the outside.
I think of the fact of, we see a lot of women now, and I've actually had this happen to me, where they get upset if you hold a door open for them. Say you're going into the grocery store or into Walmart or a shopping mall or wherever, and they get pissed off that you're holding a door open. Is the fact of being courteous just for anybody being rubbed off on the entire feminism movement?
Oh gosh, I really hope really hope not. I think that is, if we lose courteousness, if we lose simple manners, then we are really in trouble as a society. I train my child, who's a 9-year-old little boy, to hold the door open for women, to give up his seat for a woman. I'm sorry. Maybe if a woman is offended by that, then I'm still going to raise my child the way that I think is appropriate, because I want him to be a thoughtful person. And so, there's always, the truth of the matter, Dave, is we are not going to be able to please everybody all the time. And so if somebody is offended because we're holding the door open for them or whatever, then that's their problem.
I get that, and I can appreciate that, as we got about 4 minutes here before we have to go to break. But doesn't that cause a lot of stress on men or women when it comes to their own self-healing and their own strengthening of their spirituality? Because spirituality is about acceptance. It's about accepting yourself. It's about accepting a higher power, whether that's God or whatever, and accepting people for what they're worth and helping people. Yet if we are shooting it down, men or women, that's only going to cause blockages that will affect or bring in negativity, which is against spirituality.
Totally. And it's everyone's, it's their own opinion, it's their own journey. if you feel a certain way that, about, say, for example, chivalry, what we used to call chivalry, things like that, then that's your own personal thing. Everybody's got a right to the way they feel. I think that everybody has to make their own decision. Are you going to act a certain way and live your life a certain way according to your own beliefs and according to your own values, or are you going to try to morph yourself all the time to be what you think society or other people expect from you? My personal thought is that you should be who you are and understand that not everybody's going to like that, but still you have to be okay with who you are. So if you're somebody who's opening the door or somebody who's being courteous and somebody shoots you the stank face, oh well. You have to feel comfortable in knowing that you're doing the right thing and you're being the person that you want to be. And if other people don't like it, that's just, they can join the club, because there's always going to be somebody that doesn't like it.
It is tough, isn't it? I swear in the next half hour, because we only got you for about another half hour, we are going to get more positive and into spirituality. This conversation has kind of morphed into something a little bit more, and I think it's been good. I really do think it's been good.
I love it.
Well, I appreciate you for keeping open-minded and candid, because the one thing that we do a lot of research into our guests, but the one thing we never do is prepare questions, because we want our interviews to try and sound natural and morph into great conversation. And I think, with the way you have helped out tonight, I think that's what we have got. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
It's been a lot of fun. We got you for another half hour. Our guest tonight, Kenya Aissa. You can find her books all over the internet, on Amazon. Sacred Girl, Spiritual Life Skills for Conscious Young Women. We've got another 30 minutes with Kenya before we bring in Everett Themer from the Encounter Online for our SOR News of the Day. And who knows, we're still debating whether or not we're going to call Pakistan to ask about my taxes. I think we should. Let's see what they have to say. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be back right after this.
Are you tired of being blocked, shadow banned, or placed in jail for simply posting your thoughts on social media? Social Media Freedom can take care of that for you. Social Media Freedom is the newest and one of the best free new apps that allows you the freedom to post what you want when you want. It takes seconds to download from your app store. Come join the tribe at Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free.
The first annual Caribou Paracon is happening September 28th to 30th in the 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Brought to you by the Canadian Society of Questers and Spaced Out Radio. Come listen to our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Elizabeth Anglin, Paisley Town, Mike Moran, Eric Cooper, and more. It's a 3-day supernatural adventure at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Tickets for the weekend are $150 Canadian. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Find yourself constantly looking up in the sky, looking for answers? Have you had extraterrestrial contact? Are you an abductee? Looking for answers to your experiences? Hi there, I'm R. Keith Andrews, Spaced Out Radio's resident ET expert. Join me live the first Friday of every month where I take questions from the Spaced Out Radio chat room. and help you understand those from the far-off world. It's 2 hours of knowledge every experiencer should listen to. Hope to see you there.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now. The Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
The Call of the Wild is in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is one of the hottest bars and restaurants in the city. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose will rock you like a hurricane all night long. Great food with everything on the menu at $6.95 near the corner of Nelson and Granville. Get your horns up and come rock with us. The Moose Vancouver, the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Are you an experiencer? Have you had run-ins with strange creatures you can't explain? ETs, Dogman, Bigfoot, werewolves? They're enough to scare the daylights out of anyone. Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski from your Cop. And on the last Monday of every month, you can listen to me and the host, Dave Scott, talk about the weird and the strange being reported on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going to bring my investigations and sources, you bring your experiences, and we'll figure out the rest together. Strange Days on Spaced Out Radio. Come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
You know, it's hard being the bad man of ufology, but that's just the way that I like it. This is Chris George Zuger, and I'll be hanging out with Dave Scott and SOR scientist Chris Cogswell for Reality Paranormal, the second Wednesday of every month. And our job is to break it down and come to conclusions as to what is really going on in the supernatural world. I'd love for you to join us and bring your questions for us to investigate right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
When it comes to the news, we look for the stories that the mainstream won't cover. Welcome to Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter. This is News Director Everett Thiemer. The Encounter is about the weird and strange stories that occur daily, and we scour the world looking to bring them to you. You can hear me with Dave Scott every Monday through Friday in our Encounter news segment. Read us online at spacedoutradio.com or check us out and give our Facebook page a like at SOR The Encounter. So come give The Encounter a read.
From the mile-high state of Colorado, sharing our signal around the world, I invite you to Spaced Out Sundays. Hi, I'm Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I'm closing out the week by taking you on a paranormal journey to the world of the weird. Ghosts, aliens, psychic phenomena, I will hit it all in your questions too. So let us highlight the paranormal for you. So come join me for Spaced Out Sundays starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern, only at spacedoutradio.com.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
A child grew up
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for joining us. Tomorrow night on the program, Ghosts of the Great White North. Mike Morin from Haunted Crew of Canada will be with us, but we take a look across the border. We're looking at Gettysburg, the ghosts around there. 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time at spacedoutradio.com. Hi, everyone listening in on the SOR Radio Network and Deep Talk Radio. Good to have you with us. Don't forget, all of our archives are free on our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Polymorphonuclear. Polymorphonuclear is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets a password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. You could shop at our store, read up on the encounter online, rock out to Bumblefoot, and so much more. Don't forget, you can also go to questers.ca to get your tickets right now for September 28th through 30th. It's the first annual Caribou Paracon, sponsored by Spaced Out Radio. Grant Cameron, Lorian Fenton, David Weatherly, Ross Allison, Eric Cooper, and more will be speaking. I will be speaking as well. Would love to meet each and every one of you. So go to questers.ca, get your tickets right now. For the final time tonight, we introduce our guest, Kenya Aissa. She is the author of a book called Sacred Girls, Spiritual Life Skills for Conscious Young Women. And we're finally going to get into that. Because, Kenya, thank you, first of all, for coming on the show tonight. What an experience this has been. And you are truly, truly a gem in your research.
Thank you for having me. I'm really enjoying myself.
Yeah, this has been a lot of fun. A real departure of what we normally talk about on this show. And I got to admit, I've actually quite enjoyed it. So thank you for the paranormal break tonight. That's all on you. All on you.
My pleasure.
Speaking of spirituality and young women, I mean, I think empowering young women is an incredible feat that we should really, all clap our hands to and call an accomplishment, because what women have been able to accomplish over the last 40, 50 years especially has been phenomenal. There has never been more female CEOs, female presidents, female pilots, everything. So when you are trying to build up the spiritual skills of young women to tap into their consciousness, to tap into their beliefs, what is the step-by-step process you use?
Well, I wish I had a step-by-step process that I could even talk about, because that would be great. I work on a very individualized basis on every girl that I work with, every client that I've ever had. Everybody is so different and so unique. Even kids or young people that come from the same family, they can be very, very different. They can have very different reactions to the same experiences or overall experiences, just based on their personalities or their own makeup. And so the way that I work is very individualized. And of course, so many of the kids that I've worked with have been survivors of some sort of trauma or family issues, or they've been in the foster care system or whatever. And so there really is no one kind of recipe, so to speak. It's everything is based on the child or the youth and their own experiences. But overall, what I can say to that is that I try to work from a place of love and caring, and let the person I'm working with or the youth that I'm working with understand that I may be here to provide that love and that caring for them, but at some point I am not going to be available all the time, and they're going to then have to provide that to themselves. And then the job is to help them learn how to do that for themselves long after I'm out of the picture. And it's been really rewarding for me, I have to say. It's been so rewarding for me to speak to the girls that I worked with 20 years ago. I love them so much, and see that what I taught them in that very first spirituality group is sticking, and I've gotten all kinds of messages and letters and pictures and things like that where I'm like, wow, it wasn't just a cockamamie idea, some of that stuff actually stuck. And that was the goal, that for me to step out and for you to take everything that I taught you and the stuff that I put in this book while I was taking notes and working with the girls, so that I could write this book and all the research I did. And it's very small. It's a very small book. It's 7 chapters, but they're very small chapters, so that it wouldn't be overwhelming, that you can kind of get in, get the information, get out,
How has the reaction been from the younger females who have read your book? Are they feeling more empowered? Are they feeling more in touch with their spiritual side, that they can accomplish what they feel they need to on a daily basis?
So that's a really interesting question, and I have to admit I've been very surprised. I was actually expecting a little bit more pushback, because you know how young girls can be sometimes. Oftentimes they don't want to be told what to do, and that's all young kids, not just girls. But what I'm finding is that, they're the ones that have gotten back to me on it, and the people that I talk to, that they're really liking the book. They're doing the exercises that I put in the book, because I think that just reading something without having something to do can be a little bit challenging for some people. And so there are some things specifically that I ask the reader to do. But the thing I think that has shocked me the absolute most, that I absolutely was not expecting, is a lot of older women are reading it. And I 100%, I have to admit, I was not expecting that. I was really, really not expecting that. And that has been one of the most fun things about this whole process. And even when I had my book launch party, and I was signing books at the party, I had older women in their 70s, come up saying to me, one woman said, I opened the book just to glance at it, and I opened it to there's a section on shame. And I have a lot of shame from my childhood and from my young adulthood, that I was attracted to that. So I felt like I needed to look at that. And someone else said the same thing about another section in the book. And so that has actually been the biggest surprise, is older women connecting and having the book resonate with them.
When you talk about trying to spiritually empower women, how would you define that? Because there are so many different cultures, so many different beliefs. How do you bring it all into one, or is it how everybody defines it individually?
It is absolutely how you define it individually, because there are too many ways for us to get input in our society today. And even if you are not someone who's getting a lot of your information and input from magazines, books, the media, news media, whatever, however you're getting your information, or from your family or from your family traditions, there's a lot of bombardment of information. And so what my goal is, and what I'm hoping to help young women with, and all women with, is looking at yourself and defining for yourself what your beliefs are and what your path is going to be, because oftentimes those are two very different things. And so I think that it is all about getting to the core of what your beliefs are and how you feel about yourself, and not allowing things like, or overcoming, I should say, things like childhood traumas or low self-esteem or having a very traumatic event, overcoming those things in order to be who you are meant to be, who you feel that whatever your higher power is, if you have one, what the universe has in store for you, which is big, big things in my humble opinion, and allowing the universe to give you what it is that you want and that everyone actually deserves.
So without feminism, how can we teach strong, independent women to become spiritually enhanced as well and growing on their own for what they need rather than relying on a movement?
Oh, well, the movement, any movement, really doesn't, that's outside of you, right? So any movement that has to do with feminism, unless that is where you get your spiritual connectedness. But I feel like things like certain movements, whether it be the Me Too movement or Black Lives Matter or whatever, those things are not within you. Those things are outside of your personal bubble, and they have been created based on things that are happening outside of you. And so I'm not saying that certain things don't affect you or the way you feel or the way you feel your place is in this world or your feelings of safety, because of course they're factors. But spirituality is a lot deeper than outside movements. It has a lot more to do with what's going on in your own heart, what's going on in your own spirit, and what your own personal drives and passions are, and how you feel supported by the universe at large. How you feel supported by, whatever your belief system is, and how you're going to take that support and then move your own life forward in a positive way, in the way that you want it to go. And that's what, in my opinion, what empowerment is all about.
Anybody can learn at any age whatsoever. It doesn't matter. That's the beauty of life, is there's not enough time to learn everything what we can learn, and every day should have some sort of learning experience in it. When you are teaching young women, if we focus on teenage women or even young adults in their 20s and early 30s, how do you define their role within themselves in touching with what we touched on early in hour number 2 about social media and the negativity that can come from that?
I think that it has to be, my hope is that there are adult mentors and adults in the lives of young women who they can come to when they see these things that affect them strongly on social media. Now, not every kid has that. I've spent most of my career working with kids and young people who don't even have parents, who don't have families, they're in the foster care system or whatever. I've worked with many kids that do have families where their families are just not, loving and supportive families. And so the information has to get to them in some way, shape, or form. So I think that every adult can share that type of information with all the youth that they know, which is that these things that you're seeing on social media is not real life. I think a lot of young people intellectually know that. However, it's still very difficult to intellectually know it and yet to see images bombarded on their social media feeds that tells them something different. And it's I think that's very, very challenging. And so I think that largely it's up to us as adults to share the information with anybody that we can, that if you are looking at these images or looking at these lives and wondering about this or why don't I have that, I know somebody like that right now who has a very tough time, and she's in her 20s, I believe, has a tough time even looking at social media because there's a part of her brain that keeps saying, why isn't this my life? And what I was saying recently to her is, that's not that person's life either. That person isn't walking around with, everything that life could possibly offer, and no cellulite, and no bills, and no, double chin, and perfectly white teeth, whatever. That is not that person's reality. But if it was that person's reality, it has nothing to do with, it doesn't make you less of a person. It doesn't make you less than because that person is doing well. What we should be able to do, especially as women and young women, is look at other people, look at images of other people, and look at their lives or look at what we see on television and say, great, that's awesome for them, good for them. I'm going to do my thing, and my thing may be different than their thing, but my thing is just as valid, it's just as valuable, it's just as good. I might be doing things differently, I might not have what that person has, but I'm doing me, and I think that's just very important to value ourselves, because if we're looking at other people, we can't value them more than we value ourselves. We don't even know them in real life,
Getting in touch with their spiritual side, is it about mind, body, and soul, or is it about the collective consciousness?
I think that the way that I see it is that it's more about mind, body, spirit, mind, body, soul, however you want to put it, because, again, this is the vessel that we live in as individuals. If I am not connected to my own body, that's one of the reasons why I work with girls a lot on body stuff, a lot of body work, because we can fall into a number of different categories as women, especially women with trauma. We are either feel fine about our bodies. We might feel like we wish we were taller or wish we were thinner or wish we had more curves, whatever. But then there's another faction of young women who may feel very disconnected from their body or very, they denigrate their body because of some sort of experience or some sort of trauma. And so the goal is to then suss out what those issues are and then work with the young woman in a place from where they're coming from based on their own experiences, because we have to be able to integrate those things within ourselves before we can move out of ourselves and maybe connect with other people. If you're not connecting with yourself, you're going to have a very difficult time connecting in a healthy way with other people, with your society, with your community. And so it's got to start within first, and then we can move outside and hopefully do our part to help others.
For young ladies who are more introverted than extroverted, is the process the same?
I think that I don't know that introverted and extroverted really is that much of a factor, because as far as growing your own spiritual consciousness and connecting with your own spiritual consciousness, that's an internal journey anyway. So it doesn't really matter if you're an introvert or an extrovert. What really matters is if you are committed to understanding yourself. You know, if you're committed to understanding yourself as a young woman, as a person, as you know, I always say kind of that goddess consciousness, right? Where you understand that historically, and there are many, many historical traditions where feminism, or femininity, I should really say, is revered. And there, over, you know, our societies and Western society, it has gone the opposite direction, where, you know, we're in a patriarchal society, and in many traditions it wasn't like that hundreds of years ago. And so it's important to understand that there is more to femininity, to womanhood, than what we see here today, that there are long traditions of very strong feminine leadership, you know, going further back than we can even think of most of the time. And that's where a lot of women kind of need to get back to, is understanding those roots as a woman, that we're much stronger than we think we are. And it doesn't matter what your personality is. If you're an introvert or an extrovert, it's okay to celebrate what you are and not try to be something else, you know, not try to be more, you know, out there, or change yourself, because there's nothing wrong with the way you are right now.
We are literally down to our last 3.5 minutes with you, and this is absolutely
no.
I know it has gone by so fast, and you know, I almost feel like I should go all Canadian on you and say I'm sorry for that, you know. but nonetheless, you know, I think you are doing an important job, and I think in empowering young women to believe that they can do whatever they want is fantastic, because hopes and dreams are just for everybody, aren't they?
Well, they are, and I think that one of the things we need to think about as far as young women, and one of the reasons why I do feel like so many people who are connected to young women should get this book, or give them this book, or share this book, is because they're here now, they're young women now, that in a few years they're going to be parents, they're going to be parenting our next generation. And what kind of woman do you want parenting the next generation? You want somebody that is strong and feels confident and feels empowered, so they can do the same for their children. And then years after that, they're going to be a lot of times taking care of aging parents. And so you want strong, empowered women doing that as well. And so it's not just here today. We're talking about our future in a lot of ways. And so I just feel like this is not just my work. This is work for all of us, you know, to raise this next generation with feelings of strength and feelings of their own power. And I think that's just really, really important.
do me a favor in the next 90 seconds. Tell everybody where they can find your book.
You can find it on Amazon.com and just search Sacred Girl Kenya Aissa, and my name is A-I-S like Sam, S like Sam, A-I-S-S-A. And if you just search my name or search Sacred Girl Kenya Aissa on Amazon, you'll find it.
I had so much fun tonight with you. Thank you so much for coming on Spaced Out Radio.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
I hope we can do it again. I really do. I really enjoyed getting to talk with you and getting to know you tonight. And I encourage all of our listeners, male and female, and especially if you have young ladies in your life, like daughters or granddaughters, to pick up Kenya's book. So thank you, Kenya, for being on Spaced Out Radio. Highly appreciate you taking the time out for our audience.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Wonderful. Coming up next, we got Everett Themer and The Encounter.
This is the winter of our lives. We come to play the final scene. The curtains close and in the darkness we expose what lies beneath.
Every night on this show at this time, we talk about The Encounter with Everett Themers. We get to the weird, the strange, and the WTF news of the day. You can find The Encounter right now. Go to facebook.com/SOR The Encounter for some incredible stories. And with that, we bring in our news director, Everett Themer. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I am good. I'm still on Team Stump, but I am doing very, very good.
Excellent.
I want to get T-shirts with Team Stump made on them. I totally do.
How did that become a thing?
It just sounds so fun. So, Everett, we're going to put a little pressure on our listeners here. And let me tell everybody why. So, if you're in one of the chat rooms or on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio, listen up. This is all on you. Earlier today, I got a message, and I'm going to leave the number out of it because we don't want to be sending travel brochures over there or anything like that.
No.
But I got a message, and it was from somebody from the Canada Revenue Agency that said, now, if we don't hear from you, we will have to issue an arrest warrant under your name and get you arrested. So get back to me as soon as possible. Thank you. So what I want to do is, I'm still debating as to whether or not we should call these guys up live on the air and see what they say. So we're
debating this?
Well, I gotta admit, I've never been so spontaneous in my life on the radio. So let's see what the audience has to say. I want to see the comments on whether or not you guys want to see us do this. Because we will call if you want. If you say, no, it's a waste of time, we'll just get into The Encounter. So while we're waiting on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio or in one of the chat rooms for your reactions, Everett, give us a story from The Encounter.
Well, we'll do a little quick one.
Sure.
A driver in Spain was pulled over for a safety spot check, and he tested positive for every drug that they could test for. He tested positive for amphetamines, methamphetamines, cocaine, opiates, cannabis, and alcohol.
Nice.
And surprisingly, he did lose his license, but he only had $2,000 or 2,000 euros in fines.
Are you kidding me?
And it's settled already. No long drawn out court battle. It was $2,000 or 2,000 euros in fines. He lost 12 points off of his license, which required the surrender of his car and his license. But he is definitely some kind of partier.
Really? I mean, that is taking a good night to a whole new level. That's not even drinking driving.
No, that's drinking driving everything.
Oh my God. How did they pull him over? Was he swerving or was he called in? Do we know?
He was, somebody called it in that they saw this person getting into a vehicle and they were concerned about his behavior and his actions. So he was pulled over for what they call a spot check and tested.
That guy has, I mean, that takes a lot of gall on a person. You know what I'm saying?
That is an incredible Saturday night.
You know, I've called in a fair share of drunk drivers. Okay. When I worked in downtown Vancouver and I would drive home to the suburbs every single day,
So you're that guy.
I am that guy because I don't need to be killed by an idiot like this, and nobody needs to have their family affected by someone else's stupidity. You know, but I mean, a guy like that, I mean, it sure goes to show the way laws are in different countries when it comes to different topics. I mean, because if that happened in the United States, especially, Everett, this guy would be in the slammer.
He would be, especially after a long, drawn-out court battle case. I mean, here, you don't just settle it over the weekend or early in the week. It's expensive both in fines and lawyer fees. You're going to lose your car. In a situation like this, he would probably lose his car and his license as well, but the fines and the lawyer's fees would be significantly higher. And this isn't exactly, I mean, it's funny. We can joke about it, but at the end of last week, there was a driver in New York who was killed after getting hit on the expressway by two different drunk drivers. Originally he was hit on his direction, or by a driver going in his direction. It forced him across the road, and he was hit by another drunk driver. So it's not all fun and games. I mean, certainly it's a serious issue, but wow, how does a body survive that many chemicals over the course of a night? Well, now we have goals. Right. Oh, come on. This is right in my wheelhouse. Okay. I think you're just calling and concerned, and we'll start out with that.
I muted myself. I was trying to get this number into Skype, and I muted myself. I got to admit, I'm a little concerned. I'm a little nervous.
I'm afraid they won't answer.
Oh, I think they'll answer. Pakistani time right now is about 10:37 in the morning. So they're about 11 hours.
Halfway through their coffee break?
Yeah. Let's try this out, shall we? Here we go. Hold on. Shh. Quiet. See if they pick up. Oh, it's saying the number is not valid. Saying it's unavailable.
Oh, no.
No, you can't do this to us. You told me to call back.
Oh, you're going to jail.
I gotta try this again. Son of a wife. Oh, but hold on a second here. It might be because I'm calling from my American Skype number. That might be why.
That shouldn't affect it, should it?
I don't know. Did I put the number in correctly? Hold on. Let me try this again. Come on. Dial. Oh, it says it's unavailable. Okay, this is what we're going to try. I'm going to have to do this on my own. Going to have to cut you out here, Everett. Hold on.
That's okay.
Hold on. I'm going to tilt the microphone up this way.
Your call cannot be completed as dialed. Please check the number and dial again.
Oh, this is garbage. Absolutely garbage. How can Revenue Canada have a number that is not in service?
That is really disappointing.
I am so disappointed by this right now. We were going to make some great radio here.
Well, how are you supposed to call back?
I don't know. They told me to call back on that number.
I don't know. That sounds a little suspicious.
I'm thinking it's fake.
No.
No, I'm serious. I am totally thinking it is fake. I'm very disturbed by this. Very disturbed.
A telephone scam impersonating the government?
I know.
Outrageous.
I know. I'm wondering, though, if because of the time it is, because it's 11:40 p.m. here on the West Coast. And I'm wondering if it's because of the time that maybe their hours are on Canadian hours or North American hours, where they work through the night and then shut their lines off in the evening. I'm wondering if that's how it works.
Yeah, but that wouldn't give you the not in service message. I think what's likely happening is they're cloning numbers, and they're hoping you get that message, and out of fear you call back within the hour after they call you. And then after a certain amount of time, they just dump the numbers so that it's harder to trace them. Because most likely they would have you send money through MoneyGram or Western Union, which is untraceable anyway once it goes through. So
but
I have a feeling
we don't have either here in my small little hick town. So literally they would have to take like Dairy Queen coupons.
I'd take a Tim Horton gift card.
You don't even know what a Tim Hortons looks like.
I do too. We drove past one. I wasn't allowed to stop, but we drove past.
I am so pissed off right now. So pissed off.
Well, that is kind of some valuable information that some people can take away from this. If they do receive a call like that and you wait, even if you wait several hours to a day, if it's likely that the number is going to be disconnected.
I know.
Because
go ahead. No, you go ahead.
No, go ahead. No,
I'm getting snarked big time right now on Twitter. Well deserved. I hang my head in shame. Many people are saying that I am going to be arrested now. That the police should be showing up here any moment because apparently I owe the Canada Revenue Agency money. And Randy from Pakistan is here to tell me.
Well, maybe if you paid the money you owe, they could afford to keep their phone lines in service.
I honestly, man, I'm hurt. I was giddy about doing this. I was actually nervous. I was actually nervous about doing this because, you have to build up a game plan. You have to set it up and be smooth. Like, you can't, act like an idiot and let them know we're on live radio.
I was excited about this for the last several hours.
You know what?
I had it in my head.
You know what I'm doing tomorrow? I'm calling it from, and I'm going to record it. I'm going to see if the number, when I get up tomorrow, I'm going to call that number and see if I can record it, and then that way we'll play it during the show.
I will bet you an ice cap that number will not be in service.
I'll take that bet because you're not even close to a Tim Hortons for an ice cap, so I'll take that bet.
I'm 489 miles away from a Tim Hortons.
Yeah, I'm 8 miles. 8 miles. All right. This is just so disappointing. So disappointing.
You want something even more disappointing?
Give me some very, very horrible news.
Joel Osteen from the Lakewood Church.
Oh, Mr. Osteen.
Has been recognized by the city of Houston for his service during Hurricane Harvey.
What?
Yeah. Apparently, they've decided, the city and some of the city council members have decided that Lakewood Church and Joel Osteen are worthy of some recognition for the service and help that they provided Houston and the families of Houston during Hurricane Harvey.
Now, hold on a second here. Unless I've gone through some serious Mandela effect here, if I recall,
you have not.
If I recall, Mr. Osteen refused to open up his megachurch to the public, saying that they were flooded out and could not open, and yet there was video shown all over every major news network that the floodwaters had not hit that area. And yet they were refusing to open up their doors, and then came up with the lame excuse that nobody had asked them.
You are correct. And even to this day, they're still not exactly admitting blame or admitting fault, but Jack Christie, the councilman that brought this up, a quote from him is this: "So they missed first base. Big deal. It's that coming home and doing all the good work that's important."
That was after they were harassed into doing it. It was a public spectacle, and you're rewarding that? Shame on the city of Houston. Shame on them.
You know, I'm curious. A lot of people have floated out there that they just didn't want people in their church. You know, they didn't want to deal with the riffraff, that kind of element. Did they have any church members who maybe evacuated to the church before it was open to the public?
All I recall is watching that video of two young gentlemen going to the doors, seeing that the doors were locked, and I believe there was a note on the door saying that the church was closed.
Yes. And there were several videos where you could see it had obviously rained and the ground was wet, but certainly the general area was not flooded. Now, there were people saying that the basement and parking garages were flooded, but not the main part of the church, and they certainly could have allowed people in. So I think that was quite the public relations nightmare for Joel Osteen. And obviously, people believe he's learned his lesson.
Yeah, but you shouldn't reward someone for that.
No, you shouldn't.
Okay? And that's where, you know, like we talked about with our guest for the last couple of hours. I mean, that's like sticking it to the people and then saying, yeah, just kidding. You know?
But, you know, even after they were open, several of their statements still kind of implied that they were more interested in just being a distribution center. I believe some of the statements were along the lines of they were receiving supplies and ready to distribute them and things like that. It never seemed as though they were really willing to open their arms and allow people to come in and evacuate to their church.
I totally agree. I totally agree with that. And, you know, when you look at the reaction, I mean, let's bring in the media here for a second, because the mainstream media takes a lot of heat, okay? A lot of heat. A lot of it is worthy, but some of it isn't. And in this case, The mainstream media jumped all over this story in trying to contact Joel Osteen and his crew as to why they did not open up the church of 16,800 that it could hold. And
he never responded.
He never responded. It wasn't until the mainstream media and the national media, along with a campaign on social media of people sharing the disgust from this hypocritical man, that he finally said, wow, my hair is getting messed up. I better open up the doors. Otherwise, they had no intention. They had no intention at all.
No. They were basically, I think, shamed into helping the community.
Do you not remember I just found his response right after it happened. He's on Twitter. He said, Victoria and I deeply care about our fellow Houstonians. Lakewood's doors are open and we are receiving anyone who needs shelter. This was like 3 or 4 days afterwards, 5 days afterwards, maybe a week. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, they certainly didn't jump out to help people. And I think that the videos that circulated showing that some of his statements were misleading to untrue, well, people paid attention to him and there was some outcry. There should have been a lot more. I mean, the guy lives in a, $10-11 million mansion?
Mm-hmm.
And I know we're going off on a little tangent here, but that church is a moneymaker for him.
August 27th of 2017, Lakewood Church posted on their Facebook page, Dear Houstonians, Lakewood Church is inaccessible due to flooding. We want to help to make sure you are safe. Look for safe shelters around our city. Please share.
And wasn't it on the 27th, I believe, they posted a message that basically ended with, we know the need is great. We do not know all the ways we can help yet, or something like that.
Yes. Yes. It wasn't until he was publicly shamed. It's terrible.
The entire time it seemed like he was trying to push everything away and help at a distance. It never seemed like he was like you would expect any other church or you should expect a church to help and welcome people, right there on the ground immediately. This was almost an inconvenience for poor Joel.
Well, he was afraid that the commoner would soil his carpets in his stadium.
I feel a little guilty saying things like that, but I feel worse that I believe things like that.
It's terrible. It's like, who was it, Kenneth Copeland and that other dude saying that they can't fly in commoners' aircraft and airliners because there's demons going through the flight and they won't be able to talk to God properly.
Did you see the headline the other day? I just shook my head at it. I didn't even give it time to read, but apparently Kenneth Copeland has said that Jesus cured the corrosion on his jet plane.
Oh, I'm sure.
But wasn't he one of the ones that was campaigning recently that he needed another jet? And I believe we talked about it.
No, that was the other dude. Not Creflo Dollar. He got his jet.
Jesse Duplantis.
That's the one, Jesse Duplantis. Because Duplantis and Copeland were having the conversation about why they need private jets and why they need jets that can fly halfway across the world without refueling at a tithing cost of $65 million plus.
I'm in the wrong business.
I know. Tax-free, my friend. Tax-free. Shall we get to the thought of the Dave?
We should.
All right, let's do it. Thought of the Dave happens every night at this time, where we ask a question on our Facebook and Twitter pages, and we read your responses on the air because we love audience participation on this show. It is very important to what we do, and we love having you be a part of it. So today's Thought of the Dave is as follows. Spiritually speaking, how do you enlighten yourself? Karen says wine. I know you said spiritually, but remember, Jesus turned water into wine. Just saying. I'd say there's a lot of people out there who would give that or agree with that answer. Don jumps in. I hope no one says it. Put a light bulb up there. Ooh, ooh. I don't get that one. Well, I guess that's how you enlighten yourself one way. Sure. Some guy named Everett says, I find knowledge and enlightenment through the works and teachings of Team Stump. You had to get Team Stump in there, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
You know what? When we create the Team Stump t-shirt, I'm going to autograph one for you. Hand it on over to you.
Oh, thank you.
This will be your present. Claudia jumps in, remembering that spirit has access to travel anywhere, and I am not limited to staying inside the encased shell that the spirit is housed in. Also giving thanks every day to nature and all that resides in it, thanking the Creator for all of the existence, and having our spaceship Earth traveling daily safely within the beautiful universe, and knowing love has the most energy known to man, and knowing where there is much love, miracles can happen. That is from the beautiful Claudia, who is part of the SOR Space Travelers Club. We absolutely love her. Absolutely love her. Penman says, I avoid writing white letters on black backgrounds. Deep. Very deep, Penman. Keith, I once attempted to find enlightenment through following the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It did not go well. That was the strangest year I had spent that day. That is funny. Tim says, be aware of the surroundings. Harolyn, daily puja, and satsang, being one with nature's beauty. Allison, stay away from a-holes. Number 1. Number 2, have nightly baths to wash away all the crap of the day. Number 3, don't watch the news or anything negative on TV. Number 4, light candles and meditate for peace. 5, keep up with my Reiki business, always sending Reiki to friends and family. 6, I don't drink alcohol or smoke cigarettes or do drugs. Well, 7, pray. Pray. That's heavy. Andrew, by listening to the thought feelings which emerge from within, yet somehow float in from without. Those moments are potential openings and guideposts for some sort of increased awareness because they are not prompted nor provoked. It's almost like intuition, but instead of the instinctual quality that the sense entails, thought feelings actually point to specific resolutions. Amazing. Absolutely amazing.
That's pretty deep.
It's very deep. Very, very deep. Sandra gets the final comment of the day. She says, spiritually speaking, how do I enlighten myself? With a Nanaimo bar. And if you're in the U.S. wondering what the hell is a Nanaimo bar, or Tanya over in Australia right now wondering what the hell is a Nanaimo bar, look it up. It's a piece of Canadian delicacy. You will not be disappointed. Get the recipe. It's all over the internet. Everett Themer, where can everybody find The Encounter online?
They can find The Encounter online at facebook.com/SOR The Encounter Online.
Perfect. We'll talk to you tomorrow night, my friend.
Thank you.
All right. We also want to say thank you to Kenya Aissa for coming on into Spaced Out Radio, talking about spiritual life skills for young women. Go to Amazon.com. Get her book. I highly suggest you do. Tomorrow night on the program, Ghosts of the Great White North. Mike Morin will be with us as we head over to Gettysburg to talk to some ghost hunters looking for some Civil War spirits. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern at spacedoutradio.com. Don't forget, you can go to questers.ca right now. Click on the Fall Conference to get your tickets for the first annual Caribou Paracon presented by Spaced Out Radio and the Canadian Society of Questers, September 28th through 30th, up here in beautiful 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia at the Spruce Hill Resort and Spa. I highly suggest you check it out. It's going to be 3 days of fun. I'd like to meet you there, so come on up. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thank you to everybody listening at home, in your cars, at work, wherever you may be tonight. And a big thank you to everybody in Spreaker for an awesome chat. Everyone on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio and the Veterans Club, the SOR Space Travelers. Thanks for making the show bigger and better every single night. Because together, my friends, we own the night. I will talk to you in 21 hours from now. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Good night.